What kind of person smashes a car mirror in broad daylight and thinks they'll walk away unscathed? The sun blazed over the suburban parking lot, glinting off the sleek curves of a black Porsche 911. Its side mirror now dangling by a thread of wire, shards of glass scattered like broken promises on the asphalt. Karen stood there, her face flushed with defiance, her heavy frame looming over the wreckage. Her purse, slung carelessly over one shoulder, swung as she jabbed a finger at the security guard who just appeared. "This is none of your business," she shrieked, her voice slicing through the humid air. The lot was mostly empty, save for a young couple frozen near their minivan, watching the scene unfold like a car crash in slow motion. Karen's eyes, sharp and venomous, dared anyone to challenge her. She'd been shopping at the upscale grocery store, her cart overflowing with organic kale and overpriced wine, when she'd backed into the Porsche with her oversized SUV. Instead of leaving a note, she'd gotten out, inspected the damage, and, in a fit of rage, slammed her fist into the mirror, shattering it. Why? Because the world owed her, and she wasn't about to apologize for it. The security guard, a wiry man named Tom with a badge that gleamed under the sun, didn't flinch. He'd seen Karens before entitled, loud, convinced they were above the rules. "Ma'am, I need you to stay right here," he said, his tone calm but firm, like a parent scolding a toddler. Karen's lips curled into a sneer. "You're a nobody," she spat, her chins quivering with indignation. "Do you know who I am? I'll have your job by tomorrow." Tom raised an eyebrow, unfazed, and pulled out his radio. The crackle of static filled the air as he called for backup. Karen's confidence wavered for a split second, but she doubled down, stepping closer to Tom, her bulk casting a shadow over him. The couple by the minivan whispered to each other, the woman clutching her phone, already recording. Karen didn't notice. She was too busy yelling about her rights, her voice echoing off the concrete. The Porsche's owner, a quiet man named Daniel, was still inside the store, oblivious to the storm brewing outside. He'd parked his prized car carefully, far from the crowded rows, thinking it was safe. He was wrong. Karen's tirade grew louder, her words a jumble of threats and excuses. She claimed the Porsche was parked over the line, that it was practically begging to be hit. "It's not my fault," she insisted, though no one had asked. Tom stood his ground, his hand resting lightly on his radio, waiting for the police. The young couple, now emboldened, edged closer, their phones capturing every word. Karen spun toward them, her face a mask of fury. "What are you looking at?" she snapped, her voice dripping with contempt. The woman, barely 20, shrank back, but her boyfriend stood firm, his jaw tight. "You broke that mirror," he said, pointing at the wreckage. "We saw you." Karen's eyes widened, caught off guard. For a moment, she seemed to falter, but then she straightened, her arrogance snapping back into place. "You don't know what you saw," she hissed, her voice low and dangerous. The air crackled with tension, the lot a stage for her unraveling. Then came the twist. A small boy, no older than 7, emerged from the minivan, clutching a toy car. His eyes were wide, fixed on the broken mirror. "Mommy, why did she do that?" he asked, his voice trembling. The couple froze, and even Karen paused, her venomous glare softening for a fleeting second. The boy's innocence cut through her bravado, a reminder of the world beyond her self-made drama. But Karen wasn't one to dwell on shame. She turned away, dismissing the child, and resumed her attack on Tom. "You're wasting my time," she barked, oblivious to the growing crowd. Another shopper, an older woman with a cane, had joined the scene, shaking her head in disapproval. The boy's question lingered, unanswered, a quiet indictment of Karen's rage. Tom's radio crackled again. Officers were on their way. Karen's world was about to get smaller, and she didn't even know it. The sun climbed higher, baking the asphalt. Karen's defiance held, but cracks were forming. She paced, her heels clicking, muttering about lawsuits and her connections. Tom watched her like a hawk, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to her chaos. The young couple stayed, their phones still rolling, capturing every moment of Karen's meltdown. The boy, now back in the minivan, peeked out the window, his toy car forgotten. Daniel, the Porsche's owner, finally emerged from the store, a paper bag tucked under his arm. He stopped short, his eyes locking onto the wreckage of his car. His face fell, a mix of shock and quiet anger. He didn't yell or rush forward. He just stood there, taking it in, as Karen's voice carried across the lot, blaming everyone but herself. The stage was set for a reckoning, and the curtain was about to rise. Daniel's heart sank as he approached the Porsche, his footsteps slow, deliberate. The car was more than metal and glass to him. It was years of late nights at the office, sacrifices made to afford a dream. Now, its mirror hung like a broken wing, and Karen's voice, shrill and unyielding, filled the air. "This is outrageous," she shouted, oblivious to Daniel's presence. "You can't keep me here." Tom, the security guard, stood firm, his eyes flicking to Daniel for a moment before returning to Karen. "Ma'am, the police are coming. You need to calm down." Karen scoffed, her face red, sweat beading on her forehead. She didn't see Daniel, didn't care who owned the car. To her, this was just another inconvenience, another slight to her carefully curated sense of superiority. The young couple, still filming, exchanged glances, sensing the shift in the air. The older woman with the cane muttered something about manners, her voice lost in Karen's tirade. Daniel set his grocery bag on the ground, his hands trembling slightly. "That's my car," he said, his voice quiet but steady. Karen froze, her head snapping toward him. For a moment her bravado faltered, but she recovered quickly, sizing him up. Daniel was unassuming mid-30s, glasses, a button-up shirt. Not the type to intimidate, or so she thought. "Well, you shouldn't have parked like that," she snapped, gesturing vaguely at the lines. Daniel's brow furrowed. "I parked perfectly," he said, his tone measured but firm. He pointed to the lines, clear and even, no fault on his side. Karen's lips pursed, her eyes narrowing. "Don't you dare talk to me like that," she hissed, stepping closer. The crowd, now 5 or 6 people, watched in silence, the tension thick enough to choke on. Tom raised a hand, signaling Karen to back off, but she ignored him, her focus locked on Daniel. The twist deepened. The young boy from the minivan, still watching from the window, suddenly climbed out, clutching his toy car. "That's a cool car," he said softly, looking at the Porsche, unaware of the storm around him. His mother tried to pull him back, but he slipped free, stepping closer to Daniel. "Did you build it yourself?" he asked, his eyes wide with wonder. Daniel's anger softened, just for a moment, as he looked at the boy. "No, but I worked hard for it," he said, his voice gentler now. Karen, caught off guard again, rolled her eyes. "This isn't story time," she snapped, but the boy's innocence had shifted the mood. The crowd's murmurs grew disapproval, not for Daniel, but for her. The older woman with the cane spoke up, her voice sharp. "You ought to be ashamed, young lady." Karen's face twisted, her confidence cracking under the weight of collective judgment. Then came the counterattack. Daniel pulled out his phone, his hands steady now, and began taking photos of the damage. "I'm pressing charges," he said, his voice calm but unyielding. Karen laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Good luck with that," she sneered. "I know people. You'll be sorry you ever crossed me." But Daniel didn't flinch. He'd dealt with bullies before, not in parking lots, but in boardrooms, in life. He knew her type. "You broke my property," he said, stepping closer, his eyes locked on hers. "There's video, witnesses. You're not walking away from this." The young couple nodded, holding up their phones. Karen's gaze darted to them, then back to Daniel, her bravado slipping. Tom's radio crackled. Officers were 2 minutes out. Karen's pacing resumed, faster now, her purse swinging wildly. She muttered about her lawyer, her status, but her voice lacked its earlier fire. The crowd watched, their phones and eyes pinning her in place. The confrontation peaked as Daniel stood his ground, refusing to be cowed. "You think you're untouchable," he said, his voice low, cutting. "But you're just a coward who broke something and can't own it." Karen's face flushed deeper, her hands clenching into fists. For a moment, it seemed she might lunge at him, but Tom stepped between them, his presence a quiet warning. The boy, now back with his mother, watched wide-eyed, his toy car clutched tight. The older woman shook her head again, her disapproval a silent chorus. Karen's world was shrinking, her bluster no match for the truth staring her down. Sirens wailed in the distance, faint but growing louder. The crowd parted slightly, anticipation heavy in the air. Karen's eyes darted to the exit, but Tom's steady gaze told her there was no escape. The reckoning was coming, and she could feel it. The sirens grew louder, slicing through the suburban quiet like a blade. Karen's pacing stopped, her eyes wide, darting toward the sound. The crowd, now a small circle of onlookers, stood firm, their phones still recording, their faces a mix of curiosity and disdain. Daniel leaned against his Porsche, his arms crossed, his gaze steady on Karen. The broken mirror gleamed in the sunlight, a silent accusation. Tom, the security guard, stood like a sentinel, his radio now silent, his job nearly done. Karen's bravado had crumbled, replaced by a frantic energy. "This is a setup," she shouted, her voice cracking. "You're all against me." No one responded. The young couple exchanged a look, the boy now safely in their minivan, his innocent questions still echoing in the air. The older woman with the cane shook her head one last time, her lips pressed tight. Karen was alone, her world collapsing under the weight of her own actions. The police cruiser pulled into the lot, its lights flashing, tires crunching over the asphalt. Two officers stepped out, their uniforms crisp, their faces unreadable. The first, a woman with a tight bun and sharp eyes, approached Tom. "What's the situation?" she asked, her voice calm but authoritative. Tom gestured toward Karen and the Porsche. "She damaged the vehicle, refused to cooperate. We have witnesses and video." The officer's gaze shifted to Karen, who stood frozen, her purse clutched like a shield. "That's not true," Karen blurted, her voice shrill. "I didn't do anything wrong." The second officer, a broad-shouldered man, walked to the Porsche, inspecting the damage. Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady as he explained what happened, pointing to the mirror, the glass, the witnesses. The young couple handed over their phones, the videos clear and damning. Karen's face paled, her hands trembling. The officers exchanged a glance, then turned to her. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us," the woman said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Karen's collapse was swift and spectacular. She screamed, her voice raw, accusing everyone, the officers, Tom, Daniel, even the crowd, of conspiring against her. "I'm a good person," she cried, tears streaking her face, her arrogance replaced by desperation. The officers remained unmoved, guiding her toward the cruiser. She resisted, her bulk making it awkward, but they were firm, professional. The crowd watched in silence, their judgment final. Daniel picked up his grocery bag, his face a mix of relief and exhaustion. The boy in the minivan waved at him, a small gesture that brought a faint smile to his lips. The older woman nodded approvingly, as if justice had been served. Karen's shouts faded as the cruiser door closed, the sirens starting up again as the car pulled away. The lot fell quiet, the tension dissolving into the humid air. But the story didn't end there. Days later, the incident went viral, the videos spreading across social media like wildfire. Karen's face, red and contorted, became a meme, a cautionary tale of entitlement run amok. Daniel, quietly dignified, was hailed as a hero for standing his ground. He didn't revel in it, just wanted his car fixed and moved on with his life. The repair cost was covered by Karen's insurance, but the legal consequences were hers alone. A fine, community service, and a misdemeanor charge for vandalism. The boy's question, "Why did she do that?" echoed in the comments online, a reminder of the simple clarity of a child's perspective. Karen, humiliated, retreated from the public eye, her connections nowhere to be found. The crowd dispersed, their lives resuming, but the moment lingered, a lesson in accountability. In the end, the parking lot was just a parking lot again, the Porsche repaired, the glass swept away. But for those who witnessed it, the story carried a deeper truth. Actions have consequences, and no amount of bluster can outrun them. Daniel drove away that day with more than a damaged car. He carried the quiet strength of standing up, of refusing to be silenced. The boy, watching from the minivan, learned something too, though he couldn't yet name it. The world rewards those who own their mistakes, not those who shout them away. And somewhere, in the silence of her own reckoning, Karen faced a truth she'd spent her life avoiding. The mirror she broke wasn't just glass, it was a reflection of who she chose to be. The suburban lot, once a stage for her chaos, now stood as a testament to the power of standing firm, of truth over tantrums, and of justice, quiet but unshakable.